Welcome to episode 2 of Practical Chess Traps. And if you're wondering what this series is about, go ahead and watch the first video in this playlist, and that will briefly explain the purpose of this series. So today we're going to continue on with the Chigorin Defense and focusing on when lines where black plays an early bishop to f5. And this trap fits quite well into our series, as it's both quite likely to occur and it does have a useful theme that can come up quite a bit in the London system. So let's look at this line. Once again, it's the Chigorin. We discussed this in the previous video, but the Chigorin player is basically saying, chess is an easy game. I'm going to develop knights before bishop. I'm not going to worry that I'm blocking in my c-pawn. And I'm going to try to just ram through e5 as quick as I can before white has time to organize a defense for that. So, as London players, we're sitting really well because we just use that bishop to prevent e5. So they're going to have to make some concessions if they want to get that move through. And we continue on with this bishop to f5, and we talked about this last time. We just mentioned briefly that black is contesting this diagonal, this b1 to h7 diagonal, and so our typical plan of playing bishop to d3 and creating attacks on the king side in the London system is not going to be as effective as it normally would, because this bishop will help blunt these attacks. So what we do is we play c4 and we try to create quick play on the queen side. Now last time we looked at the most common move in this position, which was e6, and today we're going to look at the second most common move, which is d takes c4. And our response to this is knight to c3. And our idea is we are setting up e4 and want to play that with tempo and grab our lion's share of the center. So now the most common move by black is e6. We just simply continue on with our typical London development. We're going to play e3, be ready to take on c4. Now the second most common move for black is knight to f6. Just pick up that pawn. And now here is where we start to get into the sequence of our trap. And just like in the last video, the second most common move is bishop to d6. Now black just wants us to exchange and get those bishops off the board. Now we're not going to be so cooperative because we're going to set up a trap. And this trap is actually quite easy for black to fall into. It involves a central pawn fork with 2 moves in a row with the pawn. And I've actually had this come up a number of times in my game. One in a 90-30 game in Dojo Liga, where I was able to get the central pawn roller. Not in this variation, it was actually in the poison pawn variation of the London system. But that kind of goes to my point about the practicality of learning some of these traps, because that came out of a different line in the London system, but this theme can come up. And so let's get to it and take a look at it. So our trick is to play bishop to g5 here, pinning the knight to the queen, just like we did in the last variation, in the last video. And so now what's interesting is, let's look at the 2 most common moves for white. Let's start with the second most common move, which is castling, but you can see it's close to a third of the time they play castling, and that walks right into our trap. What we do is we simply play e4, hitting this bishop, and now let's say they move away, otherwise we'll take that bishop. We got e5, and so we win a piece because we got this knight pinned to the queen and we have this pawn fork. So this is the central pawn roller pawn fork, where we hit one piece with tempo, piece moves away, we hit it again. We hit the next piece. And so, you know, there's nothing they can do about this, actually. So instead of moving the bishop away, if they wanted to try to hit our pawn, say, well, it doesn't really change anything because, you know, we're still hitting that piece. We could even, if we wanted to, we could even play this. But that's the general idea of this trap, is the central pawn fork where we play our pawn move twice. And so let's just look, let's go back to this spot right here. And in this position, sorry, right here, they castled into this, and it was very easy. We just played e4, e5. Now, what if they play h6? Well, all hope isn't lost, because we can still capture here. And if you look at this, let's see, 90% of the time, they play queen takes f6. So we still have our same idea here. We just play e4, followed by e5. They have a little bit more compensation or play for the material in this line, but nonetheless, we still use the same central pawn fork idea. So, you know, if we go back through, let's just look through here. Every move we played is one of the top two choices. So it's highly useful to know, because it's a decent chance that this could actually occur in one of our games. And this idea here, this pawn fork, the central pawn roller pawn fork, you will have this come up in different lines in the London system. So this is very useful to know. So I hope you found that useful. I'm going to keep trying to, as I study the London system and learn it and run across examples of this, I'll make short videos like this out of it. Maybe explain a little bit about the opening before we get to the traps. One thing I would encourage you to do, I'll put some links down below. I put links of the courses that I'm studying as I learn the London system. The main course that I'm studying is Alex Banzia's London system on Chessimple. I would have to say that's the best course I've ever run across in chess, actually. And so I think I'll also put some video links to his YouTube videos where he plays games with the London system, and you can kind of see if those lines are to your liking. But that's going to be my primary weapon, is stuff I learned from his course. I'll supplement it with other things, of course, but I would strongly encourage you to look at his videos. If you're an adult improver, he does a great job explaining all the ideas and looks at common mistakes that can be made by club players, instead of just focusing on, you know, titled players, you know, play in those lines. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that, and we'll be back soon with another one. Take care.